Look at your life right now. What is the one emotion that paralyzes you the most? Is it anxiety about the future? Is it the fear of not having enough money? Or perhaps it is a deep, silent dread that you are simply not enough. We are taught to look at these feelings as intruders, as diseases that have infected our minds. We treat anxiety like a virus that needs to be killed. We treat fear like an enemy that must be fought. But what if I told you that this battle is the very reason you are losing? The ancient masters, those who encoded their wisdom in the Hermetic traditions, knew a secret that modern psychology is only just beginning to rediscover. They knew that you cannot destroy energy. You can only change it. Imagine for a moment a block of ice. It is hard, cold, and rigid. Now imagine a cloud of steam. It is hot, expansive, and free. They look completely different. If you touched the ice, it would burn you with cold. If you touched the steam, it would burn you with heat. But are they different things? No, they're exactly the same thing, H2O, vibrating at different rates. The ice is simply water that is slowed down. The steam is simply water that is sped up. This is the secret hidden in the Thoth prophecies and the Emerald tablets. Your fear is not a separate entity. Your fear is simply your personal power, frozen. Your anxiety is simply your creative genius, moving too slowly. You do not need to fix yourself because you are not broken. You are simply vibrating at the wrong end of the scale. Today, we're going to hand you the technology to heat up the ice. We're going to decode the fourth Hermetic law, the principle of polarity. This is not just philosophy. This is the mechanics of consciousness. We will show you how to slide the scale of your mind, to transmute the lead of terror into the absolute gold of confidence, instantly. This is the lost alchemical key. Before we unlock the fourth seal, if you are one of the few who are tired of fighting their own shadow and are ready to integrate it instead, please click the subscribe button and turn on notifications. The algorithm suppresses this kind of knowledge because it empowers the individual. We are here to reveal it. Join us. To understand how to hack your reality, you must first accept that your eyes are lying to you. We live in a world that appears to be made of dualities. We see up and down. We see light and dark. We see good and evil. We see fear and courage. We are conditioned from birth to label these things as opposites, as enemies that cannot exist in the same space. You believe that to have courage, you must eliminate fear. You believe that to have wealth, you must eliminate poverty. But the Hermetic teachings shatter this illusion with a single four-word sentence. Truths are but half-truths. Consider this. Where does heat end and cold begin? Look at a standard thermometer. You can see the numbers rising and falling. But can you point to the exact degree on that thermometer where heat stops and cold starts? You cannot. There is no absolute point. Cold does not actually exist as a separate thing. Cold is merely a word we use to describe the absence of heat. It is the same energy, thermal energy,
just at a lower degree of vibration. Now apply this to the universe inside your head. The universe does not deal in opposites, it deals in degrees. East and west are not separate places, they are points on the same line. If you travel east long enough, you eventually spiral around the globe to the west. The distinction is only in your perspective. The Kybalion, that mysterious text attributed to Thoth, states clearly, everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. This sounds like a riddle, but it is the blueprint of your suffering. When you say, I am full of hate, and when you say, I am full of love, you are talking about the same emotional currency. You are not holding two different coins. You are holding the same coin, flipping it over in your hand. Hate is not the opposite of love. It is love vibrating at a chaotic, low frequency. Fear is not the opposite of power. It is power that has been compressed and frozen. Why does this matter? Because if they are the same thing, you do not need to go out and find confidence. You do not need to acquire it from the outside. You already have it. It is sitting right there, disguised as your fear.
Let us bring this down from the clouds and into your living room. How do we actually use this? I want you to visualize your mind not as a battlefield, but as a control panel. On this panel, there are no on or off switches. There are only sliding dimmers, like the ones you use to dim the lights in a dining room. This is the perfect metaphor for the principle of polarity. Imagine a dimmer switch labeled emotion. At the very bottom of the slider, the light is almost out. It is dim, shadowy, and dark. We call this position fear. At the very top of the slider, the light is blindingly bright. It illuminates everything in the room. We call this position courage. Now, pay close attention. When you move the slider from the bottom to the top, do you change the electricity? No. Do you change the light bulb? No. You are simply increasing the intensity of the current that was already there. Most people spend their lives trying to smash the dimmer switch because they don't like the darkness. They try to surgically remove the fear setting. They go to therapy, they take pills, they read self-help books, all trying to get rid of the bottom half of the slider. But this is impossible. You cannot have a top without a bottom. You cannot have a positive pole without a negative pole. The battery of your soul requires both to function. Thoth's polarity hack is the realization that you have your hand on the slider. You have been staring at the darkness, paralyzed by it, forgetting that you are the one holding the control mechanism. The law states that you can slide your mental state from one pole to the other through the power of will and attention. You do not fight the dark. You simply turn up the light. But here is the catch, and this is where most people fail. You cannot transmute something completely different into something else. You cannot turn sound into heat just by sliding a switch, because they are different classes of vibration. In the same way, you cannot turn fear into calmness instantly,
because calmness is a different scale. The true opposite of fear is not calmness. The true opposite of fear is courage or power. They are on the same line. This is why calming down rarely works when you are in a panic. Telling a person in a state of high vibration terror to just relax is like trying to turn a high-speed fan into a stone. It defies physics. Instead, you must use that high energy. You must transmute the shaking hands of fear into the shaking hands of excitement. You must slide the heavy leaden weight of anxiety up the scale until it becomes the golden driving force of action. The energy is already there. It is just pointed in the wrong direction.
Here lies the tragedy of the modern seeker. You have been told to fight your demons. You have been told to conquer your anxiety, to beat your depression, to kill your ego. This war terminology is not just unhelpful, it is chemically disastrous. According to Hermetic law, when you fight a state of mind, you are actually feeding it. Why? Because attention is energy. To fight something, you must focus on it. You must lock your mental gaze upon the very thing you wish to destroy. Imagine a coiled spring. This spring represents your negative emotion. Let's say insecurity. When you try to push it down, when you say, "I must not feel insecure," you are applying pressure to that spring. The harder you push, the more potential energy the spring accumulates. You might succeed in holding it down for a moment, for a day, perhaps even for a year. But the laws of physics are absolute. Eventually, your arm will get tired. And when you finally let go, that spring will not just return to its normal state, but it will explode upward with violent force. This is why we see relapses. This is why people who suppress their anger eventually snap in a rage that seems disproportionate. They were not curing the anger, they were pressurizing it. Thoth's teaching in the Kybalion warns us against this specific trap. He teaches that you cannot kill a lower frequency. Darkness is not a thing you can shovel out of a room. You can shovel darkness for 1,000 years, and the room will remain dark. The only way to remove darkness is to introduce light. The mistake you are making is fixing your attention on the negative pole. You are staring at the bottom of the dimmer switch, screaming at it to be brighter. But the switch does not respond to screaming, it responds to sliding. The law of polarity dictates that to change your reality, you must withdraw your attention from the unwanted condition and place it entirely on the desired condition. You do not fight the cold, you build a fire. You do not fight poverty, you focus on the creation of value. It sounds simple, but it requires a discipline that few possess. We are about to give you the specific step-by-step protocol to perform this mental sliding. This is the practical application that turns philosophy into power. But before we initiate the shift, I ask you a simple question. Are you finding value in this decoding? If you are beginning to see the matrix of your own mind more clearly, take a split second to like this video. It tells the algorithm that this knowledge is vital, and it helps us find others who are ready to wake up. And if you know someone who is currently trapped in the fighting phase, share this with them. You might just hand them the key to their own cell. Now, let us return to the control panel. Now we execute the protocol. The ancients called this mental transmutation. It is the art of changing your mental chemistry at will. Do not mistake this for toxic positivity.
Toxic positivity is pretending the ice isn't cold while you freeze to death. Mental transmutation is acknowledging the ice, understanding it is just water, and applying heat to change its state. Here is the 3-step mechanism to hack the polarity of any emotion. Step 1 is recognition. You must stop identifying as the emotion. When you feel a wave of terror, stop saying, "I am afraid." When you say "I am," you are attaching your identity to the vibration. You are gluing your hand to the bottom of the dimmer switch. Instead, say, "I am experiencing a vibration of fear." It sounds like a subtle shift, but it disconnects your ego from the current. You become the technician looking at the panel rather than the electricity running through the wire. You realize you are standing on a line and you are simply at the lower coordinates of that line. Step 2 is the polarization. This is where the magic happens. You must identify the exact opposite on the same line. If you are feeling lethargy, laziness, do not try to jump to peace. Peace is not the opposite of lethargy. Action is. If you are feeling hate, do not try to jump to indifference. The opposite is love. You need to find the upper pole of the specific emotional axis you are currently on. Remember the dimmer switch. You cannot slide from the temperature slider to the volume slider. You must stay on the same track. Find the positive equivalent of your current pain. Step 3 is the slide. This is the act of will. Once you see the upper pole, you must fix your attention upon it with laser-like intensity. Do not think about getting away from the fear. Think only about the sensation of power. Visualization is key here. If you are paralyzed by the fear of a public speech, do not try to calm down. That is suppression. Instead, visualize the end of the speech. Visualize the applause. Visualize the surge of adrenaline as a fuel source. Imagine your mind is gripping that dimmer slider. Physically feel yourself pushing it up. Feel the vibration rising. Your heart is still beating fast? Good. That is energy. Don't slow it down, channel it. Label that rapid heartbeat as excitement instead of panic. Physiologically, they are almost identical. The only difference is the label your mind applies to the sensation. By changing the label, you slide the switch. You transmute the lead of anxiety into the gold of performance. This technique works because the universe hates a vacuum. By filling your mind so completely with the positive vibration, the negative vibration simply has no space to exist. It is not destroyed, it is overwritten. The electrons that were spinning in a pattern of fear are now spinning in a pattern of courage. It is the same energy rewritten by the observer. This is what Thoth meant when he said, to change your mood or mental state, change your vibration. You are the alchemist. Your mind is the laboratory, and your emotions are simply the chemicals waiting to be mixed. Now, a word of warning. If you practice the slide technique we just discussed, you will experience immediate results. You will feel the surge of power. But the Hermetic masters warn of a secondary law that often strikes the beginner, the law of rhythm. The pendulum that swings to the right must swing to the left. If you slide your dimmer switch all the way up to extreme euphoric joy, physics dictates that you will eventually swing back towards sorrow. This is why manic highs are often followed by depressive lows. The universe demands balance. So how does the master escape this? Does the master suffer from mood swings like the rest of us? No. The master uses a higher application of the law called the law of neutralization. Imagine the pendulum swinging back and forth. Most people are living on the pendulum bob, getting slammed against the walls of their own emotions. They are dizzy, nauseous, and out of control. The master, however, does not live on the bob. The master climbs up the string. When you slide your mental state to the positive pole, let's say to courage, you must anchor yourself there by refusing to participate in the swing back. You do this by raising your consciousness above the emotional plane and into the mental plane. You become the observer. When the inevitable wave of fear returns, and it will try to return, you do not engage with it. You look at it from above. You say, I see the pendulum swinging back, but I am not the pendulum. This is what Itzhak Bentov meant when he spoke of the observer self. It is the part of you that is stable, unchanging, and eternal. By identifying with the observer, you effectively freeze the dimmer switch in the on position. You allow the lower emotions to pass beneath you like a storm passing under an airplane. You are aware of the storm, you respect the storm, but you are not in the storm. This is the difference between fleeting happiness and permanent joy. Happiness is a swing of the pendulum. Joy is the stability of the anchor. To master polarity is not just to choose the positive, it is to stand firm in that choice when the rhythm tries to pull you back. It is a refusal to be dragged down by the collective gravity of the world. The world wants you afraid. The news, the media, the economic systems, they are all designed to pull your dimmer switch down to fear, because fearful people are obedient consumers. The master refuses to be dimmed. The master holds the light, not by force, but by a superior understanding of the mechanics.
As we close this decoding, I want you to look at your fear differently. For your entire life, you have treated your negative emotions as waste products, as trash to be thrown away. But the alchemists knew better. They knew that you cannot make gold out of thin air. To make gold, you need lead. The dull, heavy, toxic lead is the raw material required for the transformation. Your fear is your lead. Your anxiety, your anger, your doubt. These are not your enemies. They are your raw materials. They are the potential energy waiting to be liberated. A person with no fear has no fuel for courage. A person with no capacity for hate has no capacity for deep, fierce love. The intensity is the gift. The only problem was the direction of the flow. So do not hate your shadow. Do not run from the darkness in your mind. Turn around and face it. Place your hand on the dimmer switch. Recognize that the trembling you feel is simply power vibrating at a low frequency, and with the calm, absolute authority of your will, slide that switch up. Feel the heat rise. Feel the lead melting into gold. You are the alchemist you have been waiting for. The lab is open. The experiment begins now. The fourth seal is broken. The law of polarity is now yours to command. But remember, knowing the path is not the same as walking the path. The dimmer switch will not move itself. You must move it every single day until the light becomes your natural state. If this transmission has sparked a light in the dark room of your mind, help us keep the flame alive. Like this video to signal the algorithm. Subscribe to join the order of seekers who refuse to sleep. And in the comments below, tell us, what is the one lead emotion you are committing to transmute into gold today? Is it fear into power? Doubt into certainty? Declare it. Writing it down is the first step of the spell. Until next time, keep the switch up.